What's up guys, welcome to Build Fix episode number 29 for July 2026. This is my regular series where I help people choose parts to build a gaming PC, and while that has become much more difficult in 2026 due to the ongoing PC hardware shortage, on the flip side, perhaps this series is needed now more than ever, because if you're in a situation where you need a new system or you need to upgrade, some guidance will help you overcome the challenges presented by very high storage prices and in particular, very high RAM prices. This series is proudly sponsored by PCPartPicker.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by the Paul's Hardware store on paulshardware.net, the only official source for Paul's Hardware merchandise. Tantalizing t-shirts, brilliant beer sets, high-quality hoodies, and more, all featuring the classic thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers, or the 8-bit thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers who hate curves. New designs are added sporadically and at random, so head over to paulshardware.net and get some of that sweet, sweet merch right now. Or not right now, after you watch the video. Either way. A couple quick notes on how Build Fix works. It starts with a community post. You can find that by going to the Posts tab on my channel. You can also get notified when these go live if you are subscribed. This is my parts list request for July. There's also a somewhat unrelated poll attached. Since we're in the hot part of summer now, I decided to make people choose what is their favorite cool, refreshing summer treat. Soft serve ice cream? That's what I chose. It won with 37%. Regular ice cream coming in second with 29%, and it looks like people are cutting back on drinking a little bit this summer since I included a frozen daiquiri as well. But thank you to all of you guys who came in and posted replies down here. For our first build to be fixed, though, I actually chose 4 responses from Gundox Crit 1652, Tomman 256, Tolgayur Torin, and Metal Devil 1912. These are all related because they're all requests to upgrade or build new AM4 systems. AM4 systems have seen a resurgence in popularity in 2026 because they use DDR4 memory, which is relatively less expensive than DDR5, although both DDR4 and DDR5 have gone up a lot in price since the memory shortage started back in September or October of last year. And that was caused by multiple large AI companies going to the memory fabricators, booking up much of their capacity and causing a general shortage. AMD's AM4 platform is still very viable to build on, however it is not 100% smooth sailing, so I'm going to use PCPartPicker to kind of show you guys where the pitfalls might be. And that starts with the CPU, because the CPU options are somewhat limited, or at least they're more limited than they should be, especially if you want an X3D processor, which is a very good solution for gaming in particular. So PCPartPicker's filters will allow you to choose the platform you're building on, or the socket more specifically. We're choosing AM4, so it's only going to show us those kinds of processors. But then I'm also choosing Zen 3, which is going to give us the most recent processors on this platform that you can still buy. AM4 had multiple generations of CPUs that launched on it, going from Zen to Zen Plus to Zen 2 to Zen 3. By choosing only Zen 3, we're going to see just the CPUs that came out most recently on this platform, although most of these CPUs did launch at least 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. You can also use the search here to add the term X3D to look at just X3D processors, and that shows us one of the main drawbacks here, which is that 5600 X3D, 5500 X3D, and 5700 X3D, which were really good bang for the buck options, are now no longer in production, so they're really hard to find. You can of course search for these on the used market, but as with all things on the used market, your mileage may vary, and you should always watch out for scams. AMD just recently relaunched the 5800 X3D as the 10th anniversary edition. That's still available, selling for $349 on Newegg and Amazon, and I think a few other places. Newegg even has a free AIO liquid cooler that's attached to it right now, but at $350, this costs more than multiple newer AM5 CPUs, which can be based on the newer Zen 4 or Zen 5 architecture, including the just launched 7700 X3D, which is going for about $280 right now after the promo code. There's also the OG 7800 X3D selling for the same price as the 5800 X3D 10th anniversary edition. There's the 6-core 7600 X3D going for $340, and also the 9800 X3D, which is pretty much the best CPU for gaming. That's up at $445, but uses the newest Zen 5 microarchitecture. But of course, with any of those 7000 or 9000 series CPUs, you have to build on the AM5 platform, which means you need DDR5 memory, which is going to cost more money. So getting back to our AM4 Zen 3 based CPU options, I think there's really only 3 on this list that I would recommend. Starting with the Ryzen 5 5500, and that is simply because it is a bargain at $82, and it also includes a Wraith Stealth cooler, so that gets you up and running without having an added expense of spending $20 or $30 on an air cooler. It's definitely not the fastest CPU around, and it actually has half the cache of higher end 5000 series CPUs like the 5600 and above. But to get that, you'd have to spend more than twice the amount of money, jumping from 82 bucks up to 166. And if you're going to spend that amount of money, you might as well jump from the 6 core to the 8 core and go with the Ryzen 7 5700, which is 170. So this is my second AM4 CPU that I'd recommend right now. It also includes a cooler, the Wraith Spire, which is a bit larger than the Wraith Stealth. And you go from a 6 core to an 8 core. Going to a higher core count CPU isn't always going to improve gaming performance, but for anything else that you're doing, productivity tasks, if you're doing video editing, rendering, that sort of thing, you'll definitely notice the improvement going to an 8 core 5700 over the 6 core options. Beyond that, the only other CPU I'd recommend would be the 5800X3D, just because it has best in class gaming performance on the AM4 platform, although you are again paying that premium. So I would heavily weigh that price against the cost of upgrading to AM5 and going with DDR5 memory, where there are more X3D CPU options available, as I already showed you. So that'd be the first question to answer if you're building on AM4 or potentially upgrading from maybe a Ryzen 2000 or 3000 CPU or something like that. And I did note that the price kind of doubles each time, going from $82 for the 5500 to $170 for the 5700, and then all the way up to $350 for the 5800X3D 10th anniversary. The second major question you want to answer is what to do about memory. And of course, one of the other benefits of DDR4 is that you might already have some on hand. Perhaps you're repurposing an older system. DDR4 has been around for a lot longer, so the potential for finding some on the used market is a little bit higher. Although prices on the used market have gone up as well, you need a little bit of luck to actually get a deal on DDR4 memory. Then you need to make the choice of how much memory to get. 16 gigabytes, I would say, is the bare minimum. I would shoot for a 2x8 gigabyte kit. And then the step up from there would be going for 32 gigabytes or 2x16 gig DIMMs. If you follow my GPU, memory, and SSD price watch series, you might be familiar with the current price of a 32 gigabyte DDR4 memory kit, which is about $190 to $195, which seems like a lot, especially if you haven't looked at RAM prices since mid-2025. But I have a couple linked in the video description. For $190, we have this Geel DDR4 3000 kit. And we also have a G-Skill Aegis kit, which has a slightly better cast latency. You want to aim for DDR4 speeds of 2933, 3000 or faster. Then the cast latency should be as low as possible. Generally 16 or 14 is pretty fast. You can get by with CL18 as well, or a little bit slower if you find a good deal. If you're willing to cut your capacity in half down to 16 gigs, this is a pretty bare bones Patriot kit, and I know spending $100 on 16 gigs of DDR4 in 2026 is not that appealing. That's why my general advice right now is to hold off on buying memory unless you really need it. But if you do decide to go for DDR5, you're going to be spending about $100 extra per 16 gigs, and potentially a little bit more than that. This Team Group 16 gig, 2x8 gig kit of DDR5 6000, yes, does have RGB, but it's also selling for $220. And that is after you add this promo code. Meanwhile, if you want a 32 gig DDR5 kit with reasonable speeds and timings, you're going to be spending closer to $400. This kit from V-Color is $390 after this $30 promo code. Silicon Power also has a slightly less blingy kit, but relatively the same capacity, speeds, and timings. After this promo code, it's basically the same price. So with all that in mind, circling back to provide some more direct answers to these questions, Gundox Crit 1652 had a 6600K that they were potentially going to build with. They decided not to use this CPU though, because the 6600K is pretty older. Rather than that, they're considering the Ryzen 5500. It is good to know that you are aware that it has half the cache, but my answer to you is yes, the 5500 is a good choice for your situation. The only potential alternative I would suggest would be the 5700 as mentioned, but only get that if you're actually going to make use of the extra 2 cores and 4 threads. TomMan256 already has the Ryzen 5500 with an RTX 3060, is considering a CPU upgrade for gaming. Should you bite the DDR5 bullet? I would say no, avoid that as long as you possibly can, but since you mentioned editing and content creation, perhaps the 5700 would be a reasonable upgrade for you. Metal Devil 1912 lists their system specs right here. They are considering upgrading their SSD to one with onboard memory. I would also say hold off on that right now while SSD prices are really high. Unless you do a lot of read and write activity to your SSD or video editing, something like that, you're not really going to notice a big difference in gaming performance. Also, upgrading from 16 to 32 gigabytes of RAM, I would say tentatively hold off, but maybe do it if you can also sell the existing 16 gig kit that you have in order to recoup some of that cost. But definitely go ahead with your 1440p monitor upgrade. Remember, even if you upgrade the monitor and your system can't keep up with it, you can easily run a 1440 monitor at 1080 resolution, and it's also just something you can invest in right now and not worry about overpaying. Last comment from Tolgayr Torin. They have a system that they're considering building here as a father and son project, a ground-up PC for his 14-year-old. And while I am a little sad that this system is going to cost $1,700, keep in mind some of my recommendations. You might want to opt for the 5500 to save some money, or maybe just bump up to the Ryzen 5700 since it's really about the same price right now. But overall, I like your hardware choices. And again, since this is a father-son project, I fully approve. Full steam ahead. All right, since that was a lot of general AM4 advice, I am going to take my build from last month, which was my Steam Machine AM4 replacement, and replace them with slightly more compellingly priced alternatives. And I will link this build in the video description as sort of a starting off AM4 build. Of course, feel free to use PCPartPicker to swap out parts wherever you feel necessary. Right now, the system is costing about $860, and if you wanted to shave that down a decent amount, you could go with a 1TB NVMe SSD instead of this 2TB ADATA Legends 710 that I chose. But the TLDW for my AM4 advice for this section is go AM4 if you already have a DDR4 memory kit to work with, or if you are extremely budget limited and need to get a system up and running without paying a lot of the heavy tax currently associated with DDR5 builds. Go for AMD's AM5 platform if you simply want more performance, something closer to the bleeding edge, and you're okay with paying the current premium for DDR5, which is going to be $100 to $200 more over DDR4 kits, and about $300 plus more over the pre-crisis sales, where you used to be able to get a 32 gig kit for under $100. And then AM5 also offers a lot more in terms of potential upgrade path, both with the CPUs that are out now and the potential Zen 6 based CPUs that we're expecting to launch at the beginning of 2027. My final two suggestions for people who are looking to save money is to look for combo deals, because you can often find significant discounts on really high priced memory. For example, Newegg often has some decent combos lined up, and of course Micro Center is a great source for that as well, as long as you have one close enough to you to be able to drive to it to buy stuff. And the other suggestion, although it's a little bit out of character for my channel that focuses on building your own computer, is to get your parts list set up and then compare that to what's available on the pre-built market. System integrators often have an advantage over DIY PC builders right now because they can buy products in bulk, so I always want a reality check to make sure you can't save an extra $100 plus by just going with a pre-built. But that is all the time I have for this episode of Build Fix. I want to say a huge thank you to PCPartPicker for sponsoring this series. Also a big thank you to those of you who responded to my community post, including the 4 whose questions I chose to respond to. Check out the description below for links to my PCPartPicker parts lists, as well as some of the individual parts I talked about today, and a link to my store at paulshardware.net, where you can get yourself some high quality merchandise, shirts, mugs, pint glasses, and more, which is a great way to help support my channel. If you'd like to hit the thumbs up button and maybe subscribe on your way out as well, that's greatly appreciated. Thank you once again for watching, you guys, and we'll see you all in the next video.